Yo, it's your boy DZ, man. You already know it's not about the setback, it's about the get back. All right, now, Kentucky sheriff was in the chambers with a judge, and somehow something went left, and the sheriff killed the judge. And he pleaded not guilty to it. The sheriff pleaded not guilty to the situation, and it's a lot to the situation that has been unanswered. We don't know what it was over because the sheriff isn't speaking. And we do know that the sheriff made a phone call from the judge's phone to his daughter before he killed him. Now, also, we do know that the sheriff was implicated in the lawsuit that another deputy was sued over, saying that the sheriff knew that the deputy sexually assaulted an inmate inside of that judge's chambers. Now, we don't know what went left, but we do know that the sheriff killed him. And they were friends. That's the thing. The judge and the sheriff were longtime friends. And something happened in that chamber at that time that sent the sheriff left. But we do know he killed him, man. And we don't know what it was over, but we do know it was a lawsuit that the deputy, his other friend, was found liable for. And they said that this sheriff knew what happened. He knew about the sexual assault. So it could have been that something was about to come down the pipe for the sheriff, and he felt that this judge didn't back him up, didn't defend him in the situation. But some reason he felt this judge was liable for something. And we're going to dig into it a little bit. We're going to dig into it just a little bit. You hear me? And yeah, we're going to dig into it just a little bit now. Let's get into it.
And he's entered a plea. I'll show you that hearing in just a bit. This case is not a whodunit, far from it. It's more of a why did he do it? And is the crime murder or something else? Stein shot and killed Judge Mullins on September 19th, and the crime was captured by security cameras. The case is absolutely unbelievable because Steins, the well-liked, now former Letcher County sheriff, who's supposed to enforce the law, is accused of breaking it, committing the most serious crime you can in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. That day, Steins and Mullins went to lunch together. It was something that they had done together many, many times over the years. Steins and Mullins were longtime friends. At one time, Steins had worked as Mullins' bailiff. The lunch came up at a preliminary hearing in October.
Are you aware of anything so far in your investigation that would tell us there was any issues at lunch between Judge Mullins and Sheriff Steins?
No.
Okay. Someone on behalf of the KSB has spoken to those witnesses?
Yes, they've all been interviewed.
And there was nothing unusual that had arisen during that luncheon?
I was told that the judge made a statement to Mickey about, do we need to meet private in my chambers? That's all I was told.
Do you know the context of what the conversation was before that they would need to discuss in chambers?
I do not.
The prosecution played the video of Stein shooting Mullins.
And were you able to identify the parties we saw in that video?
That was Sheriff Mickey Steins and Judge Kevin Mullins.
And also, who had the firearm?
Sheriff Steins.
And then Judge was also in his black robe.
Yes.
Do you know what portion of the courthouse that is?
That is the judge's chambers
And where's that located at, physically located?
in the Letcher County Courthouse.
Now, there was no audio of the video, so we don't know what was said before Steins fired.
And have you had an opportunity to review the video
I have.
of the prior incident?
I have.
And can you describe for us what happened immediately prior to the clip that we saw?
Sheriff Steins uses his telephone to make some phone calls. He then borrows Judge Mullen's cell phone and appears to make a call on that. And that led to what you just saw.
Okay.
Mickey Steins was the sheriff of Letcher County, so he's not the type of person that you would think would be charged with the crime. I decided to look up Sheriff Steins on truthfinder.com to see what I would find out about him. By Steins has been the topic of much conversation and speculation.
I was told that Sheriff Steins had tried to call his daughter, and he had tried to call his daughter from the judge's phone also.
So, have you obtained the phone records from Judge Mullins' phone?
I don't have those in my possession yet, no.
Okay. Have you issued a search warrant for them?
Yes.
Okay. And have officers confirmed that the sheriff's daughter's phone number was on Judge Mullins' phone?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
So that number had been called from Judge Mullins' phone,
Yes.
is that correct?
Yes.
Now, there have been questions about whether the phone number of Sheriff Steins' daughter was actually saved in Judge Mullins' phone. A Kentucky State Police spokesperson told me recently that Steins' daughter's phone number was not stored in Judge Mullins' phone, so Mickey Steins actually had to dial that phone number. Also adding to the mystery, what Mickey Steins said to law enforcement when they took him into custody.
He was mostly calm, I thought. I mean, I talked to him, but he didn't say nothing about why this had happened. But he was calm. He was kind of afraid that basically all he said was, "Treat me fair." That's basically the comments he made.
Okay.
And for a sheriff to say, "Treat me fair," he understands that you're not treated fairly.
Did he also make a statement about, I didn't see it in the citation here, but somewhere along the line I saw a statement being attributed to him about protecting his family?
I wasn't present, but when he was taken into custody, I was told by one of the other officers that were there that he made the comment, "They're trying to kidnap my wife and kid."
That was a stunning comment, and it had people wondering what could have been going on in this small town. Kentucky State Police tell me they're investigating every possibility. In the background of this case is a civil lawsuit. Sheriff Steins had been deposed in that suit days earlier. One of his former deputies, Ben Fields, was convicted of raping and sodomizing a former inmate named Sabrina Atkins in Judge Mullins' chambers, where there weren't any cameras present when it happened.
So these deputies were taking the inmates into the judge's chambers and assaulting them? This county here, hold up. They were literally taking people into the chambers. This is what I say, right? When I say the system is corrupt. How did something to this magnitude happen in the judge's chambers and the judge is still a judge? So I guess they put cameras in his office in the chambers after something like this happened, because they said the cameras were rolling the whole time, and usually cameras don't roll unless they're supposed to be on because it's a proceeding going on in the chambers. Something was going on in this county, and they know that this county is totally corrupt. For this lady here, an inmate now, this is an inmate, for an inmate to go in the judge's chambers and to be assaulted, it's a level of comfortability inside this county that's just totally out of control. And they got sued for this. But the judge still was able to maintain his job after this happened inside of his chambers. That's crazy work. But they only found this deputy liable, and this deputy that was liable was friends with the sheriff. And the sheriff must have allowed him to slide on through with the girl from the jail and let him go ahead and do whatever he was doing. And he got caught because the girl reported it. And obviously what she said was credible, and they were able to back it up because they found the sheriff, the deputy liable. And the sheriff snapped out on the judge, but he's still not talking. Do y'all see that? He's still not talking. He's not saying anything. When most of the time people get locked up, they want to tell the whole story. This is a sheriff. He's not even talking. Y'all better pay attention, man.
In 2021, Adkins' suit accuses Sheriff Steins of ignoring the behavior. Steins' lawyers had previously told me that their client was receiving an outpouring of support from the community.
What I am amazed by are the stories of Sheriff Steins transporting juveniles and stopping at the McDonald's drive-thru to get them food and to take care of people who were, who were having difficulties in getting food and taking it to their house. I've heard from drug addicts and recovering addicts who attribute their sobriety and their success in life to Sheriff Steins' effort.
But we gonna be real, right? You can do all the positive things you want, right? Once you do something negative, everything you did in your past that was positive is not holding that weight. And we got to be real. We look at it like, yeah, the sheriff was taking the guys, the homeless people, and he was helping everybody. But once he allowed his friend, another deputy, to slide a woman on in the office and let her play without reporting it, all those good deeds, they go out the window. And let's be real. All the good deeds are gone.
Now, that is important to us because, again, there is something, and we want to know what, and we're continuing to do our own investigation. But we, ultimately, the Commonwealth has to give us the information to understand what would make this man who has served so honorably in his community to get to the point where he felt the only thing he could do to protect his wife and daughter is to take action on his own.
Now to today's arraignment and Sheriff Steins entering a not guilty plea to the charges. The former law enforcement officer walked into court in a gray jail jumpsuit, handcuffed.
We'll waive a formal reading and enter a not guilty plea at this time, Judge.
And you're satisfied that Mr. Steins is aware of his rights?
Yes, Your
and the
Honor.
nature and substance of this murder charge?
Absolutely, Your Honor. Yes.
It's a formality, but Steins' lawyers filed a notice to preserve all evidence. The judge ordered Steins held without bail. After the brief hearing, Steins was led back to jail. Mickey Steins' lawyers say they're waiting on discovery to dig into the case and review the evidence, and venue could become an issue in this case. This happened in a small town. Attorney Jeremy Bartley also told me he thinks the federal civil lawsuit in which Steins was deposed before the shooting could provide some context about what happened, but it's more than could be explained in a soundbite. Bartley also said they've seen no evidence that there was an inappropriate relationship between Judge Mullins and Steins' daughter. I spoke with the Bartleys in October about the case. So many people are asking why. I mean, it's clearly on the videotape. He's pleaded not guilty in the lower court, but why? That's the big question. And you asked a number of questions under cross-examination yesterday, Jeremy, about the daughter, about her phone number being in Judge Mullins's phones. Where were you going with that line of questioning? There's been a lot of talk in that small town, but not a lot of concrete answers about what may have been the impetus for this.
Well, I mean, our investigation is still ongoing, and I would hope, given the incomplete answers we got yesterday, that law enforcement's investigation is ongoing. At this point, we don't have a complete picture, but what I think was apparent very early is that there was a sudden inflammation of of emotion that transpired in the moments just before the tape came on in the clip that we saw. And so this tape was edited to cut out anything that happened just prior. And we think the moments just prior will tell the whole story. I don't know at this point what ultimately was on that phone. They're examining the phones, but we believe that based upon the statements that our client made just following arrest, as well as the indication that there was this exchange of phones or viewing of phones, that something in that moment made our client feel that there was no other choice than to do what he did.
So it almost sounds like you think he snapped. I mean, this was a reaction.
Well, yeah, and that would be textbook extreme emotional disturbance with the.
I mean, do we see this though? How they're justifying what happened? They're not saying this man killed a judge. They're not saying another cop killed the judge. They're not saying that. They're not saying that this was an inside beef inside of law enforcement, that somebody got killed and they killed the judge. We're not saying that. They're trying to justify the killing, man. I can't get with this. I can't get with it of it's not being as publicized as for what it is. This judge, this cop, sheriff killed the judge. This is the focus that should be talked about. That's the only thing that they should be saying. Not trying to justify what happened. They're trying to make light of a sheriff killing a judge. How do you make light of that? It's wrong. He killed a judge. This is the focus. But if it was somebody else, it wouldn't be talked about like this. It wouldn't be pushed as in it's a reason he snapped. We need to find out why he snapped. They're talking about all the good deeds he done. Everything good this sheriff has done in his career. That's what all they want to highlight. This man killed somebody on camera, a judge at that, inside of his chambers, and this is not the main topic. They're trying to say reason why he did this. Come on, man. There's no reason. You can't reason with this. This is nothing to reason with. He killed the judge. Come on, man. Man. And you know what he said? Just make sure that they treat me fair. He wants to be treated fair, as in, come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. He killed a judge, man. And it's a reason behind it, but he's not saying anything. The sheriff understands not to talk. The sheriff totally understands don't say nothing. But a lot of people don't understand that. When you're in a situation, they want to talk. He's not talking, so he's just giving everybody else room to speculate about this. That's all. And that's all that's going on. But we know what happened. They said they know that he killed the judge, but it's not murder and it's not manslaughter. Well, what could it be? If it's not murder or manslaughter, when you see it on tape, him blatantly killing him and then calling his daughter like, hey, man, we can't try to cover up and justify when people in law enforcement do things like this. He murdered somebody, man. And the judge in this situation gave him a hold without bond. When, you know, sometimes they'll let him out on bail. But he got a hold without bond.
Textbook example always of finding your significant other with someone else, and in the moment, In the older case law, they referred to it the heat of passion. And that's pretty much the same line of reasoning that extreme emotional disturbance follows.
There was
Come on,
discussion that he said something about protecting his wife and daughter, or he was concerned about his wife and daughter. And then you were able to elicit that under the questioning of the lead detective, that the daughter's number, and she's a minor from what I understand, her phone number was in Judge Mullins's cell phone. I don't know if that would be unusual since they had been friends for many years. Can you elaborate on that for us? What was going on with the daughter's phone number being in Judge Mullins's cell phone?
Now, candidly, I believe that the officer testified that he believed that our client made a call from the judge's phone. So whether or not there was a call separate from that or whether there were any other calls, I mean, we'll have to await the cell phone records to determine. But there was obviously, if in fact it is true that what the officer said, that the daughter's number was dialed during this period of time, and you take that in companion with the statement that our client felt like his wife and his daughter were in danger, then we think certainly there is something there that is going to support our contention that Mr. Steins felt as though he had to act. Now, what that looks like objectively is subject to more discovery and more investigation.
Why were you asking about the apps on the phones and the different types of apps that can be used for communication? I mean, it seems to me you could draw an inference that Judge Mullins potentially may have been communicating with Sheriff Steins' wife or daughter. Do you know that to be true?
I have no objective facts that would lead us there or that would anything other than, of course, there's plenty of speculation. And so I'm just asking the questions. At this point, I'm asking the questions and trying to determine, A, what the objective truth is, right? But if you look at that statute, the statute is in reference to what our client's subjective belief was at the time that he acted. And so you actually, everyone wants to know the objective why, but for us, we want to know the objective truth. But the important thing ultimately for the trial is what did our client believe? And so to answer your question more succinctly, I do not have any basis now to make any conclusion about the phone number or any interaction, other than it appears that our client made the statement that he was concerned about the safety of his wife and daughter.
Do we know, either Carrie or Jeremy, why Sheriff Steins decided to use Judge Mullins's phone instead of his own? We know you said that he did use his phone and then use the judge's phone.
Yeah, that is another reason why the phones are going to be so important in this case. And until we have back the forensic review of the phones, all of the phones, and in fact, I think we learned that there was another phone that was seized or maybe turned over from an employee of the sheriff's that we were not aware of before we were going into the hearing yesterday. All of those phones are going to become critical. And at this point, we just don't know.
The Bartleys say they're investigating everything, including whether the civil suit involving former Deputy Fields played a role.
We have to ask the question, since the allegations involve the same chambers, the same location that this incident took place in. And, I'm still struck by how unusual it is that you have a live recording of a judge's chambers going on. Most of the time, if you have cameras in a judge's chambers, they are only on if you're having a hearing. And at that point, they're initiated by a court staff, and then they are turned off by a court staff, and they include audio. But I don't know of another judge that would have had a video camera recording him 24/7, or 9 to 5, however long he's in the office. Now, we've had some information that these cameras were put up after the lawsuit and after the conviction of a deputy for some sexual crimes that he committed in the judge's chambers, these same chambers. So again, we're asking the questions too. And so far, no one will give us the answers.
There are a lot of rumors floating around that small town, and one of them has to do with Sheriff Steins' daughter. And we know that she was interviewed by law enforcement in the presence of her mother. Do we know, is there any indication that there's some investigation going on related to that? Kentucky State Police have kind of said they are looking into kind of everything and whether or not there may have been something going on that was untoward with his daughter. Are you aware of anything?
We await the results of the investigation ourselves. I don't know anything more than we heard yesterday at the hearing in terms of what that evidence may look like. We don't know. I mean, we're not at this point. We're not making that allegation at all. We are trying to understand why our client felt that he had to protect his wife and daughter, as he told the officers that day. And, that could be one, that could be based upon one factor. It could be multiple factors. And again, at this point, we're trying to, we don't want to speculate. I'm not going to speculate about anything just because there are these salacious rumors. I'm not going to get into that or speculate about that. Because for us, the examination is, did our client believe at that time that he either acted in self-protection or that he was so emotionally overcome that he was unable to control his actions in that point? It's based upon his subjective belief. What ultimately is objectively true may be important to know, but the focus will be on what our client believed at the time he had to do.
Despite Sheriff Steins being charged with murder, the most serious offense a person can face in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, the Bartleys say Steins is receiving a lot of support.
Sheriff Steins has, you would not believe the outpouring of expressions of support for Sheriff Steins. Again, ultimately, no one is going to ever say, we're never going to say that, that this is a beneficial thing or a positive thing that a man was killed. It's a tragic thing, no matter how we look at it. And just because we represent the sheriff, anytime there's a loss of life, that's tragic.
Well, it's certainly still very early on. Jeremy and Carrie Bartley, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
The sheriff snapped out. Somehow, he got that upset. He took the judge's life in the chambers. And he knew he was going to jail. But there's something bigger going on. Even though we know that lawsuit with the girl suing is something probably referencing to this. Because her being in the chambers, having sex with another deputy, that's next level. Yeah, that's next level. Let me see, Sheriff. Hold up. Yeah, the sheriff snapped, man. Yeah, sheriff snapped.
believe that my understanding was that the court simply doesn't want to take up bond at this time, but we can still file an adversarial bond.
You have every right to file for an adversarial bond hearing, and that would actually be more appropriate for the trial judge.
Sure.
Anything else at this time?
No, Your Honor.
No, different call.
I will ask that everyone be seated and remain seated until the defendant is escorted out of the board.
Sir, may we be excused?
Yeah, they gave him no bond, but they're going to try to go for bond again. Yeah, they're going to try to go for it again. And he snapped out in the judge's chambers. It had to be something with his family, because he said, they trying to kidnap my family. He said this in court. I mean, in the judge's chambers before he shot the judge. Man, you never know what people are going through. Police officers, judges. It's just a job they do. You definitely never know what they're going through. Yeah, you never know. Let me see, hold on. Yeah, let me see. Yeah, you never know what somebody's going through.
Kills his buddy, who is a judge, in his chambers. This was just a few months ago. This is the first time Steins will be back at that same courthouse. He made his initial appearance at a different courthouse, but he's back in the courthouse where this murder took place.
Surveillance video of the shooting was played during his court appearance in October. It does show Steins talking with Judge Kevin Mullins in his office, and then you can see that the shooting begins. A grand jury has formally indicted Steins on the charge of murder of a public official, but the indictment does not shed any new light on a possible motive for the shooting.
Let's go into the courtroom now in Kentucky. Sean Steins is there.
I didn't play that little part back. Wow.
That same courthouse. He made his initial appearance at a different courthouse, but he's back in the courthouse where this murder took place.
Surveillance video of the shooting was played during his court appearance in October. It does show Steins talking with Judge Kevin Mullins in his office, and then you can see that the shooting begins. A grand jury has formally indicted Steins on the charge of murder of a public official, but the indictment does not shed any new light on a possible motive for the shooting.
Let's go into the courtroom now in Kentucky.
Whoa, did y'all see that? The judge was hiding under the desk, and he still shot him.
Sean Steins is there to be arraigned.
Ms. Steins is present with counsel.
Yes, Your Honor.
And counsel, that is Jeremy Bartley and Terry Bartley, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor, and also the Honorable Gene Cox as well, Your Honor.
How are you?
All right, how are you?
Well,
Thank you.
now, the Commonwealth is represented this morning by Mr. Montgomery.
Jackie Steele, Your Honor.
Jackie Steele. And your co-counsel in this case
Is Ms. Ramsey
is
Dowling?
assigned to the Attorney General's office.
That is correct.
And that's Ramsey Dowling, and she is in trial elsewhere.
She is, I believe, in Green County, Your Honor.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Right, we are here this morning for arraignment purposes. All right, counsel, have you had the opportunity to review the indictment with your honor?
We have, Your Honor. We've taken a look at the indictment. We got an electronic copy, I believe, on Friday.
Yes. Do you desire to waive any of it?
We'll waive a formal reading and enter a not guilty plea at this time, Judge.
And you're satisfied that Mr. Steins is aware of his rights?
Yes, Your
And the
Honor.
nature and substance of this murder charge?
Absolutely, Your Honor. Yes. Judge, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt the court. We filed a notice to preserve all evidence, and I have no doubt that Mr. Steele will do that. We filed that down in district court. I just want to renew that, and I will file a written notice as well, Your Honor. And I would just ask the court to go ahead and enter a discovery order.
No objection to the preservation, Your Honor.
All right. discovery order, I understand that it is your intention to deliver discovery to defense counsel within 7 to 10 days.
That is correct, Your Honor. Ms. Dallum actually has that. We didn't know when the arraignment was going to be, and didn't have an opportunity for me to get it from her at the time.
Fantastic. That works for us, Judge.
All right. No entry of a plea of not guilty. You will note, counsel, my original intention in this case was to review bond for purposes of issuing the warrant of arrest.
Yes, Your Honor.
And in this case, I went ahead and set a no bond.
Yes, Your Honor.
Consistent with the district court's plan. After significant consideration, given the implications of Marcy's law, community safety concerns, security concerns, the fact that the defendant is in fact charged with a capital offense, together with provisions of Rule 402, paragraph 1, the defendant shall not be admitted to bond at this time.
Yes, Your Honor.
That will be a matter of the trial judge in this case. Anything else of a preliminary nature?
Oh, absolutely, Judge. And I believe that my understanding was that the court simply doesn't want to take up bond at this time, but we can still file an adversarial bond.
You have every right to file for an adversarial bond hearing. We can act without thinking more promptly for the trial judge in this case. Anything else at this time?
No, Your Honor.
I will ask that everyone be seated and remain seated until the defendant is escorted out of the board.
Your Honor, may we be excused for the full board?
It's my understanding this go directly to the facility. So the answer one.
And the crazy thing, Greg, that's probably what we'll have him, bro.
All right, there it is. Arraignment, as always, quick. You know, entered a plea of not guilty and then escorted out of the courtroom where back in the day he was running security in that courthouse. And oh my God, this case is just, there's so much intrigue with it. You have these two guys that were buddies, a sheriff and a judge. They go to lunch. Then sheriff wants to talk to judge in his chambers, and there's this weird interaction with the sheriff's possible daughter on the cell phone.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
what's gonna happen? We'll find out eventually.
I mean, and it's just so interesting because he goes to talk with the judge and nobody even thinks anything of it. He's just going to go back to his chambers and converse with him like they did all the time. So no one suspects anything.
And then you see that surveillance video, and it is just boom. Gets out the gun and just shoots him dead and chases him down underneath the desk. Matthew Mangino is with us. We don't know a lot yet. We know enough to make us want to know more, and it's very interesting. At trial, this whole thing's going to come out, though, right? The motive here. And that's really, I would think, the only defense, because that video is the video he basically executed his buddy.
Right. I mean, this is a strange situation. You know, there's no reason why this should happen except something triggered Sean Steins to shoot his friend who he went to lunch with earlier in the day. So obviously, because of that, there's so much interest in this case. You know, what would motivate, what triggered, what set off the sheriff that he would walk into the judge's office, his friend, and as you said, summarily execute him. You know, when they were out to lunch together earlier in the day. It's really something that's captured the attention of the entire country.
And Ted, you were mentioning the daughter. Why don't we go ahead and play? This is from one of his initial court appearances, and this is the detective kind of talking about the daughter. Let's play that, and then Matthew on the other side will talk about it.
I was told that Sheriff Steins had tried to call his daughter, and he had tried to call his daughter from the judge's phone also.
So, have Have you obtained the phone records from Judge Mullins' phone?
I don't have those in my possession yet, no.
Okay. Have you issued a search warrant for them?
Yes.
Okay. And have officers confirmed that the sheriff's daughter's phone number was on Judge Mullins' phone?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
So that number had been called from Judge Mullins' phone?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So you hear him talking about the daughter. Defense counsel has argued that Steins was in the midst of an extreme emotional disturbance. They really are saying a more appropriate charge would be manslaughter. Matthew, what do you think?
Well, that it could evolve into that. Again, based on what we learned from the circumstances on that day, the telephone, the contact with the daughter. We know that manslaughter is typically a charge when you do something in the heat of passion, that you act out in some way because of what you've learned, because of what you're confronted with, that gets you to the point where you take lethal force to deal with it. So it's going to be interesting to see what we learn, about the daughter, about the phone calls, about the reasons behind it, about the reasons that his daughter's number is in the judge's phone. So these are all issues that are going to be explored and ultimately are going to give us some finality to why this tragic incident happened.
And from a defense perspective, as long as they have those lesser includeds as an option, they can go ahead and basically argue to a jury that this should be manslaughter if they're not successful at pretrial, to argue with the prosecution and judge to drop the charge, or drop them lower. A jury's going to have the final say here, correct?
And he shot him.
Regardless of what the state says in terms of charge.
That's just murder.
Well, right. It would appear that ultimately this case is going to be either. Obviously, there could be a plea, but this case is going to end up in front of a jury to make that decision about what offense is appropriate in this case, and the defense will be able to present evidence to substantiate that this is more like an issue of manslaughter than it is of first degree murder. But that's going to have to be substantiated by evidence that's going to be presented to a jury. Obviously, if that evidence is compelling, the prosecution, the state may come back and try to work this matter out in terms of a plea. And maybe they don't want all the dirty laundry to be aired in public, and this is a way of resolving the case short of a trial.
Listen, man. This guy killed a judge, and all he's saying is it's gonna be a plea. Like, come on, man. He killed the judge. He didn't accidentally kill him. He shot the man while he was under the desk. Come on, man. But they gonna give him a slap on the wrist. I can already see it. They talking more negative about Diddy than this guy killing the judge. So you can already see this is gonna be a slap on the wrist. Crazy, man. I tell you. How y'all feel about that, man? Being honest. How y'all feel about that? This sheriff killed a judge, and everybody that's covering it is trying to make light of the reason the sheriff killed a judge. Not just saying he murdered a judge and he was wrong. They're trying to justify it altogether. And it's like so bad. How are you going to justify a sheriff killing a judge inside the judge's chambers? Nah. When you look at that, when we all look right here at this video, look at this video right here. I'm going to play this part back again.
place.
Surveillance video of the shooting was played during his court appearance in October. It does show Steins talking with Judge Kevin Mullins in his office, and then you can see that the shooting begins. A grand jury has formally indicted Steins on the charge of murder of a public official, but the indictment does not shed any new light on a possible motive for the shooting.
Let's go into the courtroom now in Kentucky. Sean Steins.
What I'm saying? That's nothing but murder. That's no manslaughter. That's no crime of passion. When you go under the desk and you shoot somebody once and then shoot them again, you wanted to kill them.
Surveillance video of the shooting was played during his court appearance in October. It does show Steins talking with Judge Kevin Mullins in his office, and then you can see that the shooting begins. A grand jury has formally indicted Steins on the charge of murder of a public official, but the indictment does not shed any new light on a possible motive for the shooting.
Let's go into the courtroom now.
If that was anybody else, they would have been talking about he murdered this person in cold blood. But they all trying to make light of this man murdering a judge. I know the judge's family has to be upset about this. Them trying to justify, literally, this man taking the life of a judge, it just makes the system look sick. We all need to be paying attention to that, man. It makes the system look real sick that they're trying to make light of this man killing the judge. And we all know he's gonna get a slap on the wrist. Honestly. Yeah, everybody knows. It's crazy, man. Y'all can leave a comment, man. Let me know what y'all think about that, man. Because honestly, he murdered that judge, man. Whatever the issue was, whatever they had problems about, they just went to lunch that day. You understand what I'm saying? They just went to lunch, and as they came back from lunch, he killed him. So I'm sure it's something deep, and it could have something to do with his daughter, because he did call his daughter from his phone. Why would he do that? He said that his family was being kidnapped. Why would he say that? And he killed the judge. And now, you know, he hasn't said anything, so it's a whole bunch of speculation why he did it. But we all know he killed him. What is there to think about? That was a premeditated murder. And he's a sheriff, man. It's like they get away with a lot of things. They get away with a lot of things that you normally you wouldn't get away with. And I know y'all see it too. Apparently the judge was messing with the underage daughter. I mean, that's only speculation, Chris. Come on, Chris. You smarter than that, man. I know you smarter than that. We're not going to say apparently. That's speculation. Because if the judge was messing with his daughter, he would have said that from the door. But you see what he's doing? He's being quiet. Because he's leaving room to have that open. And we can guess that he was messing with his daughter. But we don't know. Because he didn't say it. He didn't admit to that. And I can see, obviously, he knows how to use the system where he knows to be quiet. Don't talk. I have a better chance of not talking. If I try to explain this situation, I'm going to dig myself a bigger hole. And the whole world is speculating, why would this guy go inside the chambers after going to lunch with the judge and then shoot him multiple times? He didn't just shoot him to give him a warning, to make him feel it. He shot the judge while he was under the desk with intentions to kill him. And that's what happened. And they said that the detectives spoke with the daughter. We haven't heard anything about him messing with the daughter, underage. So we gonna see though. I'm definitely gonna cover this because I'm already expecting him to get a slap on the wrist. And I'm gonna be honest. I'm already expecting the sheriff to get a slap on the wrist and them not holding him accountable the way they should. You know? He should be fully held accountable with this. Like, seriously. And they said he could face the death penalty in this situation. So we're gonna see here. We're gonna see here. He said he could face the death penalty. But if he was messing with the man's daughter, he did get what he deserved, but you know, it was a better way to go about it than to end your life. So you don't want to take your life out of the game trying to make a point to somebody. You know, we all got to think better. And he's a sheriff. He knows better.
The timing of the deposition, amongst other things and other background information that will complete that story. But I do, yes, to answer your question, I do believe that that is a piece. This is a large story. That's a story that in some ways is difficult to tell. We look forward to sharing a more complete version of that as we go through this judicial process.
Wow. That's the closest we've gotten to a direct answer to this question. Ned Pillersdorf, he mentioned specifically the timing, the deposition. That deposition was at your law firm, right?
It was.
So from your perspective, what's happening in that moment? How is he acting? And what do you think he could be referring to, which is this larger story?
Yeah, to put this in perspective, we had filed the lawsuit on behalf of two women who Judge Mullins' bailiff sexually extorted. And the way that happened was, if you're on an ankle bracelet or in a drug court in Kentucky, you're very vulnerable to sexual exploitation.
Whoa.
And what we alleged was that the bailiff basically said, you don't have to pay your $250 this month if you'll go into chambers with me and perform some sexual acts.
What?
And we sued Sheriff Steins on the theory that he knew or should have known that this sexual exploitation of these vulnerable women was going on. On the Monday, we took Sheriff Steins' deposition. He was acting odd, tense, whatever word you want to use. And the best way I've tried to explain it to people, if you watch that bizarre initial appearance by Sheriff Steins, where he was asked direct questions by the judge, a couple times he didn't respond at all, or he just almost seemed to be in a daze. I thought there was something going on. The deposition was Monday.
And I want to say this, right? For those of you that don't know what a deposition is when they have a hearing and someone gets in there and testifies to the knowledge of events that happen for whatever situation that is a civil suit, that is a suit about something. So they would get in there and testify, and they said that he was moving kind of funny in the deposition. So I guess he already knew it was something coming down the pipe from whatever happened with those women.
On Thursday, when I heard the shocking, unbelievable news that Steins had shot the judge, my first thought was, is this related to the lawsuit? You know, as you said, Vinny, this is not a who did it. This is why did he do it? And after that comment today was made by the defense attorney, I think I've had the national media call me have any idea what he's talking about. I'm not sure. A number of people have asked me, Ned, do you think it was related to your civil lawsuit? And I've had people come up and tell me it was absolutely related. I've had people tell me it was totally unrelated. And I've had people say it was semi-related. Now, of course, in situations like this where there isn't anybody on the streets of Whitesburg or Letcher County not talking about the case, you know, a lot of people are talking who don't know what's going on. The people who do know what's going on aren't really talking. And I guess today his defense attorney
I hope you're paying attention,
apparently
Chris.
linked my lawsuit to the case. Now that can cut, you know, a number of different ways. You know, the lawsuit was almost a frontal assault on the Letcher County Courthouse. I early on told NBC News that they turned that courthouse, the sheriff's department, into a brothel. It wasn't just one woman they were exploiting, it was a number of women. And, you know, maybe that statement maybe was over the top, but you know, there's something going on there where women were being exploited. And, you know, one of the reasons I have been talking to the media, the reality is if you walk into a Kentucky courtroom today, what you will see is something I didn't see when I started practicing law in Kentucky 43 years ago. You will see women charged with drug charges, probably half my criminal practice. And what has happened, the good news is we've had a wonderful expansion of drug courts and women in drug courts, ankle bracelet programs. But what's not really talked about, and what this case illustrates, how vulnerable these women are to sexual exploitation. That's why we named Sheriff Steins as a defendant.
As a defendant in all this. So let me just go to Dr. Daniel Bober really quickly on this now. So this is murder, potentially. He's been charged with murder on video, Dr. Bober.
Come on,
so I'm wondering, would it have to be some level of some sort of mental breakdown? Feeling the pressure from this, and if it's something larger, other pressures perhaps in his life that would do something to the sheriff that would make him do this? Because, like, if he gets in trouble, you know, through this civil lawsuit, it's money, it's prestige, you might not get reelected. But when you commit and you shoot and kill someone on video, the results of that are much more drastic. I mean, your entire life is basically over. So what are your thoughts about this?
You know, Vinny, my sense is that there's something else going on here. I had heard unconfirmed reports that maybe the sheriff had been involved in some sort of relationship, or the judge, rather, had been involved in some sort of relationship with the sheriff's daughter. Again, that's unconfirmed. It may be partially related to the lawsuit. But what strikes me about this shooting is that it was so up close and personal. There was primal rage. It almost seemed like the deepest level of betrayal, which then boiled over into just explosive rage. Whew. And to me, that smells like some sort of inappropriate relationship. And again, I'm just speculating because there's a lot we don't know here. But if the judge was involved in some way with the sheriff's daughter, you know, a father and their child, there's such strong protective instincts, and any perceived threats or loss of control, jealousy, unhealthy feelings of possessiveness, a history of trauma, substance use, any sense of betrayal like that could push someone over the edge where they have such an extreme emotional reaction that they are unable to restrain themselves. And when you look at this situation, there was no attempt to conceal the crime. Obviously, it's on video. And there was no attempt to flee. He surrendered right after. He wanted this guy dead. He emptied the gun, and that's the way it was going to be. So to me, it feels like there was something that happened that caused him to completely boil over and lose control.
Yeah, I think betrayal is the best word. You know, all that we've heard about the daughter, everything seems to go against that from the family that we've heard. that there was not necessarily a relationship there. But again, we don't know why he was calling his daughter that day. Okay.
But what about them
Got a lot more to
courthouses
get to
there,
here in this
Diamond?
investigation. Coming up next, why does the
Tell me about those courthouses there, Diamond. They said they taking advantage of the women, giving them charges and saying that they can do certain things to get fines and charges dropped. Let me know how y'all how they do it up there.
in Letcher County at the courthouse where all this took place, and he's saying that's where the case should be tried. Doesn't want to move out of there. Sheriff says, I want to stay right here in Letcher County to try this case, which brings me to our next question in this investigation.
They said that,
which is, why does the defense want
County.
this in Letcher County? You know, instinctually, we always see defense attorneys saying we got to go somewhere else. This is a sheriff accused of murdering a judge from that courthouse, but wants to be tried in that courthouse. Why? Still with us, Ned Pillersdorf, and joining me, jury consultant, human behavior expert, Susan Constantine. This is a small community, Susan. I want to ask you,
It's
is
been
there
corrupt on all sides since the tales of time?
What's your take? What does your
I
gut
believe
tell
it
you
too,
on why the
Diamond.
defense wants to stay in that small community of Letcher County?
Well, my instinct is there is something that is going to be revealed to that jury that really affects this community, and it's personal. So we have the Commonwealth and we have, of course, the Sheriff's Department, and they've actually both have been very well respected. But there's something else that's going on, and I think this defense attorney wants a jury pool of their peers in their own community, because he's going to open up something and expose something that I think that's going to shock this jury.
Ned Pillersdorf, let me ask you about that. If it's connected to your lawsuit, if it's connected to what was happening in the judge's chambers, your lawsuit, you weren't suing the judge, were you? From your perspective, did the judge have any knowledge of what was taking place after hours in his chambers? Could that in any way be connected to what the defense wants to potentially expose here?
We don't know whether Judge Mullins was connected to the case or not. We know the sex occurred in his chambers, and we know it was a judge's bailiff. I think why the defense wants the case in Letcher County is, you know, that it's not a whodunit case.
Well, we already know he murdered the judge.
Social media
But
chatter,
it's just that they're
the
trying
rumors,
to make light of it. That really
it's out there.
puzzles me, that they're trying to make light
And,
and just trying to figure
you
out
know,
why
as
he did
a
it
criminal defense attorney,
instead of
making a
holding on
decision
that he
whether you
murdered
want
the
to
judge.
change a venue is a big deal. I know we all think, well, jurors are all fair and impartial. They're sworn. That's
what do you
not
think's coming
true.
out, Diamond? Tell me what they
You want to
say.
be very careful where the case is being tried. What's interesting about all this is I've actually tried 4 high-profile murder cases in Letcher County, 2 death penalty cases. And the way the game is played is jurors are brought in individually. First of all, have you heard anything about the case? Tell me what you heard.
Okay, yeah.
And then they ask questions about the death
things
penalty.
about his daughter, things about the lawsuit.
At that point, you can renew your motion for change of venue. And generally, I want it out of Letcher County,
but he wants
given
to
the
keep
nature
it
of my
inside
cases.
of that county.
But
So
there's an
that
interesting
county must have
law
a
in
lot going
Kentucky
on.
that the Commonwealth can actually ask for a change of venue. And if I'm predicting that is what's going to happen.
Wow.
And unfortunately, I know, because unfortunately, I know you like the lawyers aren't here or like to talk about cases they've won. This is a case I lost. I represented a local official here in my home county of Floyd County, and they wanted to venue my public official to Pike County. And I argued, wait a minute, the Constitution says you have a right to be tried in the district where the crime occurred. And unfortunately, I lost that case. They venued my client to another county. And I predict, given the rumors, the gossip,
they're going to move it.
The Commonwealth will move for a change of venue.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when you bring jurors in and ask them, what have you heard about the case? Some jurors will be talkative and open and transparent, and others might have an agenda. You've got a sheriff who's popular, He was elected. I predict I predict there's going to be a motion for change of venue from the Commonwealth. What generally happens, though, in change of venue cases, what judges generally say, in my experience, is, well, let's see if we can qualify a jury.
They make an attempt to at least do it. Let me just follow up with Susan on what you're talking about with those rumors. Rumors are everywhere, and most of these rumors, if not all of them, tend to place sympathy towards the sheriff, that he had to have a reason to do this, that something was going on.
They
How does
make
that
so much light of it?
How does that impact potential jurors?
It does. And so, you know, we say, and of course, that in any case, we want them to focus on the evidence, right? The preponderance. He's already considered being not guilty before he's being proven guilty. But, however, they can't set that aside. And that's what I'm saying. Human beings have their own biases and their own belief system. And the fact that he walked right in there, he threw everything away. There was nothing that he risked. Everything when he walked in there. He didn't care. He did it right on camera and shot him. So with that being said, I agree. This was really personal. And I think this jury's going to say, for somebody to do what he did and to risk it all, there had to be something really extreme that was happening that really helped him, pushed him over the edge, and he lost emotional control, and he shot the judge. Actually, his close friend.
Yeah, you're right. They have the personal and the professional relationship. And something else that we heard from his attorney is that they're going for an acquittal here. He believes there should be an acquittal of this case, which when, again, you look at the video, it's as clear as it can be. So getting to the why of it is so significant, and all those rumors still circulating in Letcher County. All right, Ned Pillersdorf, Susan Constantine, appreciate it. All right, a lot more to get to on Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation.
He said you heard the rumors of his wife and daughter, but you have to kind of wonder why he took that phone of the woman who works at the courthouse with them. He might have had something to do with it. Yeah. It's definitely something deep to this for him to go to the point where he wanted to make sure that he was dead. It was definitely, and then he went out to lunch with him, and then after that he killed him. So they must have had a deep conversation at lunch, and the sheriff didn't like the respond of the judge.
But like any place, sometimes, where is that why? And what else is happening here? Sheriff Mickey Steins inside the courtroom, and his family is there supporting him. There they are in that first row, right behind where the sheriff sits inside the courtroom, the same courtroom where he turned himself in, the same courthouse where this shooting happened. Now, if you take a look at the sheriff walking into that courtroom, there's an acknowledgement of his family. You can kind of see him whisper something to them.
He said, "I love y'all."
Sounded to me like "I love y'all."
Yeah,
is what he said. So there's the family is with him. There's no break there. There is absolutely no ambiguity. It appears the family is literally there for him. He is acknowledging them as they come into the courtroom.
Would have done any female.
Yeah, he's locked up away from his family for what he did. He's a sheriff. He knows you shoot a judge, you're going to get locked up.
The wife and daughter thing wasn't so.
So,
okay.
It, again, gets back to the why of it, trying to uncover that. And that brings me to the next question in this investigation. Does the former sheriff's family have a connection to what happened here in some way, whether it's related to the motive or something else that's going on in their lives? Is it about the family? Joining me, the attorney representing the woman suing Sean Steins, Ned Pillersdorf, is with us, and forensic psychiatrist Dr. Daniel Bober. Dr. Bober, we've talked about this, and I think you've used a great term to understand why someone might do this, which is, betrayal. And you look at the relationship. There's no stronger relationship for the sheriff than the relationship with his own family. What does it tell you that the family is there, supporting him every step of the way? He's acknowledging them, despite the fact that the act that he's committed, that we saw on video, has him locked up right now, away from his family.
Well, listen, Vinny, both these families' lives have been completely shattered. But again, this speaks to the motive. We don't know what the motive is. But, his family being there may be the fact that his family is close with him and they are generically supporting him. Or maybe at some level, although they don't condone what he did, maybe they understand what he did, and so they sympathize with it, and that's why they're standing behind him. Obviously, this is a very small town, and I'm only speculating, but I'm sure there's a connection between the sheriff's family and the judge's family, or they're probably not more than one person away from each other. But the fact that the family is there could just be, again, that they're there to support their loved one who they've always been close with, or it could be that they know a lot more than we do, which is likely, and they have his back.
I want to take a listen to Clayton Stamper, detective from the KSP, Kentucky State Police, testifying about
I know his wife and daughter is sick
the
right now.
phone that was found at the scene of the shooting. Take a listen.
Oh, hold up.
I was told that Sheriff Steins had tried to call his daughter.
Make sure y'all hit that like
And
button.
he tried to call his daughter from the judge's phone also.
Subscribe to the
So,
channel, please.
Have you obtained the phone records from Judge Mullins' phone?
I don't have those in my possession yet, no.
Okay. Have you issued a search warrant for them?
Yes.
Okay. And have officers confirmed that the sheriff's daughter's phone number was on Judge Mullins' phone?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
So that number had been called from Judge Mullins' phone?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And what's interesting, if you look at the phone as the shooting is taking place, the phone is then ringing, and that's the judge's phone, which is on the desk right there. You can see it light up that someone seemingly is calling right at the time that Sheriff Steins is shooting and killing Judge Mullins. Let me ask you, Ned, it seems the family's going to be connected. It seems the daughter likely is a witness here that will provide some facts for one side, both sides, if it's her number that's being called just before the shooting begins.
Okay, Don.
Just speculating, it sounds like there's a connection, but I do think the fact that who's sitting in the courtroom makes a big difference. It is not unusual in high-profile cases. We call it packing the courtroom. Sometimes our clients would bring in, prominent citizens to sit behind the defense table, or sometimes it's the other way around. I recently tried a case where my client killed a police dispatcher, and they basically had the whole police force sitting in the audience behind the prosecution table. You got to be naive to think that doesn't matter.
Of course it does.
Now, I think what would be particularly damning to Sheriff Steins if the family did not show up.
Yeah.
Jurors, they're sworn to try the case from what they hear on the witness stand. In the real world, they're looking out in the audience and see who's sitting there,
Yes,
or
they are.
or sometimes who's not sitting there. It makes a difference.
Dr. Daniel Bober, I want you to take a listen to more testimony from Clayton Stamper, the detective. Here's talking about a statement that the sheriff allegedly made after being taken into custody.
I wasn't present, but when he was taken into custody, I was told by one of the other officers that were there that he made the comment, they're trying to kidnap my wife and kid.
Okay. Dr. Bober, if I heard that statement made by some stranger who burst into the judge's chambers and then is arrested and said, they're trying to kidnap my wife and kid, like, I would have a very quickly have an opinion about that person. But in the context of this, like, I'm trying to figure out what this statement means.
Yeah, I mean, that's just right out of right field. I mean, is that some sort of paranoid delusion? Is there something going on, some larger conspiracy that we're unaware of that several parties are involved in? But yeah, that totally throws me off. That makes me take this in a very different direction. And so maybe there was some sort of
they said the sheriff
underlying mental illness,
was a nice guy and he would help
psychotic
people
break.
out.
Again, only
They did say
speculation.
that.
The pressure got to the judge. We see people that have these brief psychotic
For whatever
reactions
reason, he
all the
snapped.
time when they get to be under tremendous stress and pressure. So a statement like that, to me, it's like, what doesn't fit here? That statement does not fit with anything we've heard so far. So that definitely adds to the list of possibilities in terms of a motive.
You know, Ned, I hear those words, and I don't know where the defense is going to go here, if they're going to have some sort of mental disease or defect defense, but that would be a great foundation, right? First of all, he's saying they're trying to kidnap my wife and daughter. He only shot and killed one person and didn't go pursue anyone else, right? After he did that, he put his gun down and surrendered himself. What do you think about that statement? They're trying to kidnap my wife and kid.
Wow.
I think where they're going, there's been speculation. This is an extreme emotional disturbance defense, which in Kentucky gets you 10 to 20 years at 85%. That's, if I'm defending the sheriff, that's a non-starter. He can't do 85% at 10 to 20. The real defense that may be out there, and from basically what his lawyer said, is we call it a time to kill defense. And I know Judge Mullins isn't here to defend himself, but it's almost a jury nullification defense. It's where a defendant has information that he wants to put forward that suggests a person who killed, hate to say this, gets what he deserves. And that's maybe where they'll be going. I mean, John Grisham wrote that book, but that's a real defense in the real world. A common situation around here is somebody gets my daughter hooked on drugs, and the angry, enraged father goes and shoots the drug dealer. I've had that case, and it's sort of a jury nullification. In the real world, when you try a murder case in Kentucky, the jury is told we have what's called a subjective intent law. What was his intention? Here, there is no self-defense.
Yeah, no
It's strictly
self-defense.
what was his intention. But the jury nullification comes in and says, I don't really, not that concerned about the law. I just think whatever the deceased person did, he deserved it. And that defense is out there. I have no idea, truthfully, I have no idea why Steins did it. I was somewhat surprised today that the lawyer directly linked it to my civil case.
Yeah. Let's do this.
Surprised.
We've got more to talk about, Ned. You're going to stay with us. Big thanks to Dr. Daniel Bober. Still to come, big question, all this. Will this be?
Yeah, he shouldn't be surprised about that. He's saying that he's surprised that they're saying it's linked to the civil suit. Well, if that civil suit was going to change the sheriff's life and the judge, he felt like the judge had part or couldn't help, and we don't know, but yeah, you got to know that, of course, his lawyers would want to link that.
And a conversation with the family has been had.
Penalty. And that brings me to our next question in the investigation. Will this be a death penalty case? He shot a sitting judge in his chambers. Seems like it will qualify. Still with us, Ned Pillersdorf, and joining us, jury consultant and human behavior expert Susan Constantine. Susan, I want to begin with you first. Death penalty, how much of a game changer is that when it's time to pick a jury
If y'all can, hit
and
that
bring
like
folks
button
in
for
who
me.
have to
And
make
please
that
subscribe
decision.
to the channel. I really
Well,
appreciate
those are
everybody
all
that's
really
watching.
strong authoritarian jurors, and those jurors have to be death qualified. And when you have a death qualified jury, they tend to be more apt to convict than acquit. So I think that the major thing is here is that the state wants to make sure that they have enough evidence. And just what he said, they're not sure yet. And I believe that what he's saying is true. They don't know yet. But if they do, I think it's not off the table. But that is a very hard leap. You know that, right? We've been through this before, Vinny. But the fact that this is an officer of the court raises the bar higher. We've got a sheriff and then we've got the judge. So I think that that does rise to the level that it could possibly be a death penalty case. But if it's a death penalty case, it's authoritarian jurors, and that's just
right there,
definitely
though?
not a good sign.
Ned
already shot
Billersdorf,
him.
let me ask
He
you,
wanted to
you've
make
tried
sure he
death
was
penalty
dead.
cases in Kentucky. What are your thoughts about will this one be a death penalty case?
Technically, yes, but I don't think they're really going to seek it. First of all, Sheriff Steins does not fit the profile. Your typical death penalty case is somebody with a bad criminal record. And just at the end of the day, whether a prosecutor says, I'm going to seek a death penalty, that typically happens. It's a political question after some heinous crime where there's no question of overwhelming guilt. Here, there is real questions as to
no bad
motive.
experience.
And the reality is, and I know this probably better than anybody, my name is Ned Billersdorf, but I'm also known as Mr. Janet Stumbo. My wife was the first woman elected to the Kentucky Supreme Court, and the commercials they ran during her reelection campaigns is that terrible Judge Stumbo, she let this guy off death row and he killed this and he killed that. So it's a political decision. But the jury consultant's right. It does give you leverage in picking a jury. The way a death penalty case works is they'll individually question the jurors. And any juror who has some philosophical problems with the death penalty are automatically excluded. By definition, by math, that gets you a more conviction-oriented jury. Having said that, the death penalty is not that popular anymore. We had an interesting situation just a few weeks ago in Kentucky where an African-American lady running for the Supreme Court said to anyone who would listen, I'm against the death penalty. I sent her a donation. I admired her courage. Vinny, she won with 80% of the vote. I think 30, 40 years ago, they would have taken that statement.
Right. Let me ask you this, though, Ned. In this particular case, do you think it could be used as sort of a bargaining chip? You seek the death penalty, and then you try to work out some sort of a deal.
I don't see a deal happening. Like I say,
I don't see a deal happening.
He's got to.
He killed the man.
He's got to swing for the fences.
Yeah.
He's got a real problem with the video. On the other hand, he may have a potent time to kill defense. He is not does not fit the profile of someone who should be facing the death penalty. I can't think of another law enforcement officer. We've had plenty of law enforcement officers.
He murdered the man. He murdered the man.
Who have committed crimes. I can't think of another one where they've actually gotten the death penalty, especially in this bizarre, unbelievable context we're here. Yes, the death penalty can be used as leverage for plea bargaining. It certainly helps you in picking the jury. It gives the prosecution an advantage. My bet is the death penalty will be off the table. And if I'm the prosecution in this case, I'd get it off the table because sometimes the jury might think, that's just over the top. You're overcharging this guy.
A little too much.
And I did talk to the prosecutor, interestingly. He called me more as a witness. He said, Ned, you were present at the deposition. There may be a mental illness component to this. What was Stein's demeanor like? And what I told him was the same thing I've told you, his unusual demeanor. I just don't see, I think there's zero chance he'll be convicted and get the death penalty. I think the odds are they probably won't even seek the death penalty. They won't give the notice. But I could be wrong.
We don't know. We don't know how it's going to play out. Susan, you've seen me be very wrong, by the way. Let's talk about jury nullification, time to kill. Susan, what type of a juror, what type of a person do you see that could do that for this defendant?
As a death penalty juror? As a death penalty juror? Well, those types of people, first of all, they're very strong-minded, right? They don't have any problem with making a very strong decision about rightness and wrongness. They don't have, it's not that they don't have empathy. They have compassion, but they don't get themselves emotionally invested. So they are able to set aside their own personal feelings and make a very logical decision. And those are the types of people, through voir dire and asking lots of different inquiring questions, to really understand how they think. What's important to them.
Like
there's just a myriad of different examples that we can use as far as examples to get information out of anyone at any time. But we're looking at trying to extract what's going on inside their thinking so that we can decide whether this person is a person we really want our jury, or whether we're going to use them as one of our preemptory strikes or challenge them for cause.
Big thank you tonight. Susan Constantine, always giving us great insight. Ned Pillersdorf, who likely will be a witness in all of this as well. Appreciate your time and your insight. Oh, you're going to be a witness. We'll see you right here on Court TV. Thank you both so much. Like I said, if anyone else off the street walked into the judge's chambers and executed him, there would be a loud public cry for the death penalty.
This is what I
will that happen here?
Now that's my point, man. And he knows it. Everybody knows it, man. They're trying to make light of him killing the judge.
I'm not sure. I don't think so. First, the sheriff wants the folks in Letcher County to hear the case, which tells me whatever the motivation was, it's something he believes at least some members of the public will understand. The question is, will any of them end up on his jury?
Yeah, man. We can't make light. The judge murdered, the sheriff murdered the judge. And we all want to know why. We all speculate why. But we all seen the video. And if you haven't seen the video, go back and check it out on here. The clip is on there. The sheriff had a mission. His mission was to kill the judge. And I want y'all to, leave a comment and let me know what y'all think about it. And make sure y'all go check out the merch, sbgbtv.com. Hit that subscribe button. Share this video. And we're going to come back tomorrow around the same time, and we're going to do it again. And I really appreciate everybody that watches the channel, man. Y'all are the best. You already know, man. It's your boy Deezy. It's not about the setback. It's about the get back. Nah.